everyone, it is the D.D.N.O system, and we wanted to make a video on things that have been harder post-fusion. So we've been making videos since the early days of system discovery as a way of communicating with each other. And when we decided to be public about having D.I.D. and putting them online, we took y'all along with us through our journey to functional multiplicity and then to fusion. Though it wasn't what we were like, wasn't our end goal, this is where we are. And we've tried to be very candid that we don't think this is where everyone has to end up to be healthy and whole. So we wanted to make a video about things that specifically have been harder for us post-fusion. So one of the things is that while everyone is still represented, there was no way to predict how everyone's traits were going to shake out. And one thing that you can actually see in our videos is that while we are dog lovers, one of us was just about the dogs, and that was Anthony. There's specifically a video where one of the dogs comes up and licks his and just Well, post-fusion, still huge dog lovers. But also the surprise come up and licks, where before the prevailing thing was like, oh, puppy kisses. Now it's like, ew, puppy licks. And that's just our way of being with the dogs now. We still love them every bit as much. But now there's an aspect that didn't bother most of us before that is continuously present in our interactions with them, because dogs are licky, and every time they lick, it's like, ugh, puppy licks. And that goes for other traits as well. We had 2 touch me not alters, and then several like absolute cuddle all the time people. So J.A. and Debbie were touch me nots. Like, I don't want to be touched. I don't need you near me. Touch was reserved for emergencies and begrudging greetings, the fist bump of solidarity. That was one of our big concerns during the fusion process was, how is this going to shake out? Like, we have kids, we're married, and there's no predicting. And a thing that I was just very aware of during fusion was it felt like it was not a permanent thing. It felt like if this does not increase functionality, we can undo it. And I know that that is not necessarily true for everyone in their process, but it was definitely true in my process. And the touch me not thing is something that is still there and is unpredictable. So I will just like not want touches some days. Like I just, And before it was kind of easier because you knew if J.A. was out or Debbie was out, they just didn't care for touches. Now I can seem very flirty and very sociable and not want touches. It's a new dynamic that I'm not used to, and those around me have had to adjust to as well. All right, this might seem like a weird thing to have an issue with, but pronouns have been difficult because when I say I, it now includes all. And when I'm talking about stories from the past, usually I use a first-person narrative. So whoever was host for that gets the first-person narrative, but that I doesn't translate to now I, and pronouns just feel even more confusing and slippery, and dang it. So I normally just let people know that, hey, if they are aware of the D.I.D, just be like, this I is an all, it's a we, I as we, because we're all represented and contained here now. But still, I'm going to be talking past narratives, probably going to be for first person viewpoint of Jenna, which can get confusing for people. It can get confusing for me. So that has been harder. And finally, we were in the middle of trauma processing when fusion happened, and we had processed most of the really big memories and triggers. And I do think that that facilitated us coming together, but not everything got processed. And along with the lines of there was no way to predict how things would shake out, triggers that were not processed also then became part of the whole. So for a while, grocery shopping became a more difficult activity. This was one of the areas, and I know I've talked about it in another video, but one of the areas where we lost some functionality, because there was Lil, for sure, who could go grocery shopping with no issue. But most of us had anxiety and triggers around the activity. So when fusion happened, while the general anxieties were a little lower, we didn't have someone who could just go into the store without having an issue. We had a couple panic attacks in the store right as fusion was beginning, and we weren't exactly sure what was happening yet. So that became something that was more difficult and became then a priority for trauma processing, so that we could then interact with this activity once again in a way that was more functional. And we have gotten there with grocery shopping. It's now easier, but there was a period of a loss of functionality in this area. So while we have been talking about fusion on our channel a lot because it's been our experience, and it has been a largely very positive experience for us, we also wanted to be frank about the downsides that we've experienced, to kind of give people who are going through it or are just going, is this something that I even want to pursue, a very balanced look at, like, these are things that you can expect to encounter through this process. And that doesn't even touch on the adjusting to life with a different stream of consciousness, with not having dissociation as a regular coping mechanism. And while, yes, being grounded is fantastic, there's still days where I'm like, it's harder to check out now, and I think I would like to check out of this situation. So while we are happier and healthier than we have ever been, that doesn't mean that this process is without its ups and downs, its pros and cons. So we'll continue bringing y'all along for the journey wherever it takes us.